Welcome to episode 8 in our beginner guitar series. In this episode, we're going to be going into another key using the foundations that we learned in key of C, and still the same, building a scale, arpeggio, and chords. So let's start with our G major scale. Just like for key of C, we started on C. For key of G, we're going to start on G. And we're going to follow this whole step, half step pattern that we used for the numbers on key of C. So we'll start with G, go up a whole step to get to A. Then from A, go up a whole step to get to B. On 3 and 4, we have a half step. So a half step up from B is C. So far, we're still all natural notes. From C, we need to go up a whole step to get to D. Up another whole step to get to E. And now we've got a whole step here between 6 and 7. And now the letter after E, the note after E is F. And those are normally a half step away. So we have to do something interesting here. We have to make this F a half step higher than it usually is. Now let's take a look at what this looks like on the guitar. Looking at our E string right here, our low E string, here is E, and here's F, just for reference. These are a half step away, they're only 1 fret away. We need to go up a whole step, which means we need to go here. Now, bridging this gap, we've got G across from it, so we need to figure out what's in this space right here. Well, this is where we use what's called a sharp, this little hashtag symbol here, this little hashtag, or a flat, which kind of looks like a B. We're starting from F, but we need to go up in pitch by a half step. That means we're going to call it sharp. Sharp means upward. I like to think of it as if you got hit by something sharp, you know, your instant reaction is to sort of jump upward and away from that. Hit from something, and if you think of the word flat, well, it's closer to the ground, it goes downward in pitch. But anyway, this is F sharp. And that's the note that satisfies this whole step here. Now after F sharp, we've got a half step. And if we look at our guitar fretboard, a half step up from F sharp is G. And that completes the loop. So let's write out this entire scale here. We're going to start from G, and then we need to get A. So we'll just do our open A string. Our next note is B. Go up a whole step on our A string to find B. C is a half step up. Right, the next fret. Up a whole step from C gets us to D. Now, remember, a whole step up would be right here. We've also got our open D string, so we'll play that. A whole step up from D means we're on our 2nd fret on our D string, and there's E. Now here's our whole step up from E. Now this is the exact same thing whether we're on our low E string here or our 2nd fret on our D string there. We still need to go up a whole step to get to F sharp. Now there's just one last step, which is to get to our G, which is a half step up. And it could be placed on the 5th fret here, or we can play it open. And there is our G major scale. Let's now take a look at our G major arpeggio. Now just the same as before, like as in key of C, we took our 1, 3, 5, and 8 from our G major scale, and we just took a look at that. Our 1 is G, our 3 is B, our 5 is D, and our 8 is G an octave higher. On our fretboard, let's try and find all of these notes. G, we're going to start down here on our E string. So E, F, a half step up. A whole step up from that is G on our 3rd fret. B, let's go to our A string here. A, and then a whole step up, we have B. D, we've got on the open D string. So that's just right there. And then G, an octave higher, we've also got on the open G string. And there is our G major arpeggio. Now between key of C and key of G, there's only one note that's different. It's this F sharp. In our key of C, that was just a regular F. So that means for our chords here, we're actually going to have a lot of repeats, because only the chords that contain that F sharp have changed. So I'll skip over the ones that we already know from the last video for now, and we're just going to take a look at the new ones. Remember G major chord, that's a review. We had that in our key of C, and no F sharp in it, so it hasn't changed. A minor, our second chord, also doesn't have F sharp in it. We already know that chord. Now B minor. In key of C we had B diminished, but now we've got B minor. So let's figure out how we play this one. We're going to start on our A string, grab this B right here, and we need a D. Now, we need a D and an F sharp. Now, we could grab this open D here, but instead we're actually going to grab this F sharp on the 4th fret of our D string. Remember, you can count up from that: D, E, F, F sharp, okay? The next note that we want is going to be on our G string, and we're going to think, here's G, A, B is right here, so we're going to grab that right there. On our B string, we do have an open B, but we also need a D in our chord. So we are going to grab this D right here. Our last note is that F sharp on our E string, our high E string. And there is our B minor chord. Now if you're having trouble with this B minor chord that we had before, where you would bar across these strings, there's also a beginner version where you just play on the top 3 strings: B, D, and F sharp. Let's take a look at the rest of our chords. C major, well that's definitely the same from our key of C, because that was our 1 chord there. D major is now different. We had D minor in key of C, and now we've got this F sharp. So, if we look at D major, we're going to start on our open D string. And we're going to grab that open D. On our G string, we're going to grab this A right here. On our B string, we're going to grab this D. And then our high E string, we've got the last note that we need, F sharp. And there is our D major chord. Now let's take a look at our 7 chord, F sharp diminished. This is obviously changed from key of C because the very root of the chord, F sharp, is different from that F natural that we had in key of C. And I've actually added another row onto our fretboard here because we're going to need that to play this chord. Let's look at our D string, and we're going to grab F sharp to start out with. So D, I'm going to grab my purple, D, E, F sharp right here on our 4th fret. Now on our G string, we're going to grab G, A, B, C right there. Our B string will go B, C, D, and here we're going to grab an E. This is the same sort of thing as the diminished chord in our key of C. This one isn't in what's called this regular triad for our diminished chord, but we're going to play it along just for now. I want you to go along with it. Now, our last string, we've got our E string, so E, F, G, A is the final note in F sharp diminished. And this one, you're going to have to bar, which can be kind of tricky at first, but just try and work that finger strength. I'm sure you got it. And that brings us back to G major, which we already know from the start and from key of G. So there is our scale, arpeggio, and chords from key of G. Let's just first find all of our notes in key of G. We're going to be using the same half note and whole step and half step pattern that we had before, where there's a half step between our 3rd and 4th note and our 7th and 8th note. G is our first note. We're going to go a whole step up to A, a whole step up to B, our third note, and the distance between 3 and 4 is a half step, so there's C. This is our fourth note. To find our fifth note, we go up a whole step to D. To find our sixth note, we go up a whole step to E. To find our seventh note, 6 and 7 is a whole step away, so we have to go here. Now, this is a note we haven't actually encountered before. E to F is a half step, but this is a whole step. So what do we call this? Well, we're going to have to go on a bit of a tangent here. I'm going to just start on F, right? Now, there's a note above F, but not G. This in-between sort of note. We call this F sharp. It's a half step higher than F. Now, there's F sharp, but there's also a flat here as well. If we start from the other side, here's G. We go down a half step, this is G flat. We can call this note here either F sharp, going from F to F sharp, or G flat. Okay? You can do the same thing on any note. If we had our G here at the start of our G major scale, we can go G sharp up or G flat down. So now we know what to call this note. This is our seventh note. Let's move on in the scale. 7 to 8, F sharp to G is a half step. Let's play all of that from the beginning to end. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Now let's try this back down. G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. There's our G major scale. Now let's do our arpeggio. We do this the same way that we did for our C major arpeggio. Start with G, skip a note, go to B, skip a note, go to D. And then for the arpeggio, we cap it off with the octave, the higher G. G, B, D, G, and back down, G, G, D, B, G. There's our G major arpeggio. For our chords, we're actually going to find that there's a lot of overlap from key of C, and that's because only one note has changed between key of C and key of G. It's this F sharp right here. So let's start with our G major chord. Well, a G major chord is something that we already had in key of C. It was this. You can look back at the last video to find out how we found that one. Our next chord is an A minor chord. Well, we've already got that one too. Here's our A minor chord. Now we've got something different. We've got our B minor chord. In key of C, we had a B diminished chord. So let's find out our B minor chord. We've got B, skip C, D, skip E, F sharp. There's that note that's different. So we've got B, D, F sharp. For this one, we'll start with our B here, and now we're actually going to play the F sharp next, because it makes the rest of the notes a lot easier to play. So B, F sharp on our D string, and then for our G string, the easiest note to find here is our B. So B, F sharp, B. For our B string, we're now going to be playing the D here instead of the B. So B, F sharp, B, D. And now, for our final note, on our E string, we're going to be doing another bar. So our index finger here is going to be barring across all of these strings in order to reach this F sharp. B, F sharp, B, D, F sharp, B minor. That was our third chord. Now our fourth chord is C major. This one's familiar from our key of C major. Our next chord is D major. This one's different. We've got D, or let me start open. Got D, skip E, F sharp, there's that note that's different, skip G, A, D, F sharp, A. There's our notes in D major. So let's start with our open D. On our G string, the easiest note to grab is this A. On our B string, the easiest note to grab is this D. On our E string, the easiest note to grab, let me switch my fingers around, this F sharp, okay? So we've got D, A, D, F sharp, D major. Now we've got E minor. This one is from key of C. We've already got that one. Our last chord is F sharp diminished. We're gonna start on F sharp, up on our D string, and we're gonna find the rest of our notes. Now remember, this is similar to our B diminished, so there is gonna be one that's weird. The first three, same as usual though. F sharp, skip G, A, skip B, C. F sharp, A, C. For this one, we're gonna be doing another bar here. I'm going to be playing this C on our G string, and then an E here on our B string, okay? F sharp, C, E, and then this bar is just going to continue across to our A on our E string. F sharp, C, E, A. F sharp diminished. And we're back to G major. And there's the scale, arpeggio, and chords from G major. You can use this pattern to find out all the scales, all the arpeggios, and all the chords in any key. As long as you remember 1, 2, well, the half step between 3 and 4, and 7 and 8. Thanks for watching.